Okay, question. Is it according to halacha, is it allowed to charge extra for sheitlach and teffilin, etc.? Can they only charge what it costs to make it? So this is a huge question when it comes to the Bacher is asking about the Jewish industry, but you can really ask in other places as well. And can people charge whatever they want? So in Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat, Siman Reish Lamed Aleph, there's Hilchas Eino, and here it talks about Kol Mafkia Sha'orim Shemoicher Yeser Meharoi, someone that ups the prices and sells for more than they're appropriate that should be sold. Rashoim lahalkoisoi ula'onshe kafi haroi. They're permitted to give him malchus and to punish him. Now the Shulchan Aruch is coming behemshich to other things. It could be specifically about things that people must have, like wine, oil, and flour, but everyone also must have teffilin and sheitlach, etc., so you can maybe connect the two. There's definitely rules in halacha about not overcharging. Many pratim like that. However, nobody knows what it really costs. I remember as a bacher, I just got married, and I was looking to buy mezuzas for my house, and I found out that there are some seifim that they charge very little for a mezuzah, and the seifim that are Yirei Shamayim, they charge a lot more. So I asked my Rav, it sounds odd that the guys are Yirei Shamayim, and therefore he charges more. Like, what's he charging for? Is Yirei Shamayim? What's the pshat? What's the cheshbon? What gives him the right to charge so much more? So my Rav told me, first of all, a sefer that's Yirei Shamayim is more careful, so he writes slower. So therefore, what it takes a sefer that's not Yirei Shamayim an hour, it could take him 2 hours. So he has to charge more. Secondly, a Yirei Shamayim, when he writes a whole Mezuza and you find that there was a psul, something went wrong, he'll throw the whole thing out because he's a Yirei Shamayim. And therefore, when he has a good one, he's more careful, so it'll cost more. So there's a combination of factors when it comes to prices, when it comes to sheitlach, when it comes to teffilin. It's not just, you think it costs so cheap. It's you never know what the actual costs are. There's always labor costs and there are always other things. And also, at the end of the day, there is a big market. There are many people selling sheitlach and teffilin. You can always buy from someone else for a better price. It's not like only one person has a monopoly. But yachad im kol zeh, yes, there is a rule that people should not be overcharging. And the basin today can't enforce these kind of things, but ideally it should be. Yeah? Huh? Definitely, yeah. That's not suggested. It's required to buy from Yirei Shamayim, even though the price would be a bit higher. That what? Yirei Shamayim is not more expensive today. Certain people have names that they are considered that they're Megillas, their stuff. Not because they did Yirei Shamayim. Can say? Yeah, if you say so. Shh. Huh? No, it says Afkiya Sharim is forbidden b'chlal. It says there's a whole bunch of halachas. You can look in Reish Lamed, there's a whole bunch of more halachas. I just said one of them. Huh? Yeah, Siman Reish Lamed if I just said. Lamed Aleph. What? It's a bar of the same sugi. Okay. Question: is it a thing by hagbah to specifically open the Torah to only 3 columns and not any more than 3? We've had this conversation a few times already. So the Rabbi actually is mitzayin over here to the Mishnah Brura and Siman Kuf Lamed Daled, where the Mishnah Brura writes someone that does hagbah, so he should be open it up to 3 pages of magbiyah. The Magen Avram says that it's possible that it's davka 3. The Mishnah Brura himself says, "V'nirali, I think the tovel if you koyach magbiyah, shiyah b'yecholti lagbiyah shenigleles harbe." So the Magen Avram says davka 3 and not more. The Mishnah Brura himself says person can do more, he can do more. I found afterwards that the Rebbe's father did hagbah, he did it for more. I don't know if that's accurate, more than 3. I don't know if that's true. Of course, if that's true, that's for us a very important source. But it's obvious that when people just open up just to show off, that's obviously not okay. That's something which should be frowned upon. But if you're doing it l'kavod Torah and you rely on the Mishnah Brura, and if that Sefer Torah is reliable, then yeah. Yes.
How do you know that they're doing it for gaiva?
How do you know they're doing it for gaiva? I guess if you don't know, then you can assume that Kol Yisrael b'cheskas kashrus. Yes.
Speaking of high gaiva,
it's hard to know. If you can tell if a person, you're supposed to pick it up high. But some people, they flex and they're all proud of themselves, and it's clear what they're trying to do to gain attention, and that's not okay. Kitzer says no hanging mezuzas, so use 2 screws. What if you use one on the bottom and the mezuzah stands on it without hanging? I assume the Bacher is asking that, let's say if this is the Mezuza, and usually if you want to hang it on the wall, you have to put a screw here and a screw here. Putting a screw here is considered hanging. So if I put a screw over here and it doesn't fall over, is that okay? No, here it's not going to hang. The pashtus is not okay because the point of the two screws is not screws. The point of that should be strongly against the wall. And even though if you have it and by balance it's like this, it's not so sturdy. So the pashtus it would not be okay. I don't know if it's considered specifically hanging, but the pashtus is not okay. Is boxing assur with gloves, without? And also, what about wrestling? When the goal is to get your opponent to the ground. So, what? The goal is to get him to the ground. This is the way the Bacher asked the question. So, when it comes to all these kind of contact sports, so the question is not only bowling and boxing and wrestling. You can ask it on football as well. Tackle football is also obviously an element of injury. So there's it seems like the pesukim were asked the challah, and the pesukim say that there's a famous tshuva of the nodע ביהודה about hunting. We did it this year or last year. The hunting share was last year. But basically he says what people do for work, when the person does something for work, even though he puts himself in an element of danger, it's permitted. And if someone's playing sports for as a career, in that case, so even though he puts himself in a danger of getting injured, a pasha would be permitted. Now, it's not just for that. It's not just for parnasa. Person does other things, even for leisure. It's considered that it's a normal thing to do. That it should be permitted. So there's a tshuva from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that he says that whatever most people do and they're not afraid of being injured, that's considered that we don't consider it a real danger. We rely on these people. So if in our culture, in American culture, everybody wrestles and everybody boxes, that's considered the normal behavior. That was, even though technically people could get injured, but people don't consider that to be a concern of injury. That's why it's permitted. If you say that the culture is not to do boxing like that, there are certain sports that are more dangerous than others, and most people would not participate in those sports. In that case, it would be forbidden. If you want to read a story of the Gemara, a famous story with the Tosfos, the Gemara says, Reish Lakish Zavi nafshei leludoi. Reish Lakish sold himself to ludoim. What are ludoim? So it can be bandits, but many learn ludoi to mean cannibals. Shakol ba'adei chayso v'galgalto. He took with him a bag, a sack, and in the bag there was a stone or something heavy, a heavy piece of metal or a lead or something like that. Omar, he said, Gmiri, I know, I have a tradition, because we know Reish Lakish was a bandit. We'll see Tosfos in a moment. He knew the ways of the bandits. So I know that the Yom Basra, on the last day before they kill you, called the boy minayu avdile. Whatever you asked, they will fulfill. Why? What's the source of fulfilling somebody's last wishes? Ki heichi de leichul adme. That this way he should. So the Rashi teaches that he's basically you fulfill his wish, or he forgives you for killing him. Give yachol in a certain sense. But there's a cool shot from the orthodox that when a person gets into a good mood, so his blood is better. So they fulfill your wish. Oh, now you're going to be more juicy when they kill you. But that's the orthodox shot. Kitzer Yom Abasa, the last day. Apparently he knew when's the last day. Like he knew Cheshbonus. Amrulei, they told him, "My nechalach." No, what do you want? Your last wish. Amar Lahu, he told him, "Ba'ina akmatinchum." I would like to tie you guys up, veisvinchu, and let's sit you around. Each one of you, I'll give you a zetz and a half. One strong zetz and one half a zetz. So they agreed. I guess one by one they continue, and kol chad minay, each one of them. So he took his bag. They didn't know that in the bag there's this heavy piece of lead or metal. So he took each one of them. When he gave him one zetz with the bag, nafak nishmase. The guy would die because he knew how to give a good zetz to kill the person. Every time he killed him, so here the Gemara says, Charkine l'shine, he gritted his teeth, Amarle, and he told the guy that fell, Achuchi gamachaychet bi, akati poshlach gabi, palga de chaysa. Which the Mefarshim explained that what he did was, he didn't want the other people to know that this guy was dead. So he said, oh, you're making a joke out of me as if I knocked you out. I still owe you another half a punch, but fine, I'll go to the next guy. But really, they were all dead. Katlinu kulu, and he killed all of them. And Nafak also the things what happens afterwards, is not so much negaya to us. But the beginning of the story, which is not highlighted, is that he sold himself to the cannibals. So says Taisvis, this must be koidem shechazar lemutav. This is what I said before. Reish Lakish, we know he was abandoned and then he became the big Amoira. There's a discussion if he was always abandoned and then he became an Amoira, or lechatchila he was an Amoira or a tzaddik and then became abandoned and came back. Either way, he was for sure at Tkufa abandoned. And Taisvis says the mistame lo hayim mizalzel ba'atzmei kol kach. Because mistame, if he was an Amoira, he wouldn't lower himself down, be mizalzel to behave in such a way. So some people want to bring the story that you see them from Taisvis. If you're a big Talmud Chacham, it's a pastor should get involved in such kind of fighting. But if you're not such a big Talmud Chacham, then look, this is a kind of behavior that you're willing to risk your life to go and have these fights and make some money, whatever it is, might be permissible. So Lepoyel, halacha lamaisa, like always, you have to ask your local orthodox rabbi, but there's a strong svara to say that it's permitted to do boxing and wrestling because it's pretty much very common culture in America, and it's not considered, people don't look at it as the most dangerous and terrible thing. Of course, I think that it's a very crazy thing, and it doesn't make sense to me, but my opinion is not so relevant. Yes?
If you're a boxer, you probably have, it's not like you need to be a wood chopper or something. You have other options or jobs just to want to do that.
Often that makes sense to me. I can make more money this way. Any job you saw, and when it comes to the Nodע Bihuda, where the Gemara says about climbing up high trees, you're allowed to put yourself in danger. You can't get a job that's not in danger.
Like 99% of people that are amateurs, they're making less than a normal job.
I don't know all the pratim, but that is not a good argument because it's if the job is legit, then I can do it, even though I can technically find another job. This is a job that I can.
So is there an issue with it's not only fighting, but with basketball, for example, you want to humiliate the guy when break his ankles, is that an issue?
To break someone's ankle is an issue. Yes, you can't break people's ankles.
Can I literally, okay, you want to knock the guy out?
You can't physically hurt another person.
Well,
you can't hurt a person in such a case.
It's humiliating him if you're playing basketball and he falls to the ground.
You're not trying to break his ankle. You're trying to. If you're trying to break his ankle, then I would say it's forbidden. I would assume. If it's a damage that's more than a regular zest, then yeah.
I guess I gotta stop playing.
But wasn't that issue?
So a certain element of pain to yourself you're allowed to do for parnasa or for leisure. There's a certain element of exertion that a person's allowed to do. 1 second. Yeah?
Why would he sell himself if he's about to die? What are you going to do with the money?
First of all, it could be the money went to his family, and he sold themselves, and then also, and he, that would be the simple answer. It says he took it back then, the Gemara continues, he did with his money, with he went to his daughter, whatever. Yeah. Are you allowed to fish? Ma kesha. Okay. Yeah? The pesukim want to say that only Reish Lakish, when he was at Amoira, wouldn't do such a thing. But regular people can put themselves in such a situation of fighting. So Taisvis says that he wasn't a Talmud if he wouldn't be mezalzel himself so much. Okay, no, right, that's why some Rabbanim say you're not allowed to go skiing for the same reason, because you're putting yourself in a place of danger, and they claim that the amount of injuries that happen are too much, so percentage-wise you're not allowed to do so. Same conversation, no? Okay, question: why are hours before 12 o'clock considered like two? This is something which I've said in the past, and the bacher asked me where did I get it from, so I told him put it in the Q&A and I'll find it for you. And basically, what did I tell the bacher? That I've heard in the past that when you go to sleep, you're supposed to sleep 8 hours a night. So if you go to sleep at 12 o'clock, you're meant to wake up at 8 o'clock. If you go to sleep at 11 o'clock, you can sleep till 7 o'clock. But I remember hearing that if every hour before Chatzois is worth 2. So if you go to sleep at 11 o'clock, you can wake up at 6 o'clock, because 11 is considered, the first hour is considered 2 hours. If you go to sleep at 10 o'clock, you can wake up at 4 o'clock, because you have 6 hours, but the first 2 hours are worth 2. And I remember reading that some chassidim would go to sleep at 8 o'clock and wake up at 12 o'clock. 8 o'clock at night, and they would wake up at 12, and they would be up the rest of the day, because those 4 hours were considered double. So I remember hearing all these things. The 8 to 12 I for sure read. I didn't remember with that interpretation. That was my interpretation. But I tried looking it up, and this is just a chat GPT for you. He quotes to me, look, Sefer Asichas, the Torah Sholem, and he gave me an actual page number. And of course, it's not there. So I put it on my status today and asked people for sources. So one person checked his ChatGPT and he gave me 2 sources, Lakuti Diburim, Sefer Asichas. I didn't even bother checking because I know for sure it's not there. So, but other people, so one person sent me a Gemara in Brachas. And the Gemara doesn't clearly say this, but the Gemara says that David HaMelech always slept before Chatzos and he never was sleeping by Chatzos. David me'olam le'avar olav Chatzos laila b'sheina, Rab Zera Omar ad Chatzos laila yemisnamnim kisus, Bikam ve'elach yemisgaber kari, that until Chatzos laila he would drift off, shish in the shimis, and from then on he would wake up. So there is a source that sleeping is meant to be before Chatzos halayla, but it doesn't really give me the source. Somebody else wrote to me that he heard that it was the Rebbe answered a bracha once, a personal tzattel, but he didn't find the source yet. I mean, I sent it earlier today. What? I can't hear what you're saying. Oh, someone else told me that it's a health thing, that according to doctors, according to health, it's considered more. So I've heard, people, basically, I don't have a source yet. Many people apparently heard it just like I did. One person told me, try it out, sleep early and see if it works the same for you. Okay, shkoyach. But I'm looking for a source. I remember hearing the name of the Rabbi or Chassidim, and I have not found a source yet. Maybe somebody that will steam my status will still give me a better answer. And so in the meantime, I don't have a source. There's a whole bunch of it being alluded to that sleeping before Chatzos is important, but not with that specific description of 1 hour before. But I've definitely heard it, and apparently many other people have heard it as well. Bakasha. Okay, this is an old question. Whoever remembers when this question happened. Are you allowed to play with the hafrashas challah, the kind that was taken off? Remember the question? Somebody. I wasn't there then. somebody took hafrashas challah, and then the bacher is playing with the challah and walking around like a.
Maybe he took hafrashas challah.
You weren't there then. I never asked the question yet. I was in the box till now. Oh. So basically, in Siman Kuf Ayin Aleph and Shulchan Aruch, there's halacha. There's a Siman. The person should not make a bizoyon to disgrace foods. And it says a person can do what he needs with bread, but on a condition that it doesn't make it mos, it doesn't make it like disgusted. And there's a number of things. It says, Ein zerkin apas mishum zizrechem. You're not supposed to toss bread. You're not supposed to throw bread because it's a bizoyon. In other words, you have to respect bread in a certain way. So the chayra, taking hafrashas challah and swinging it around like whatever, the chayra I would say is considered b'zayin. Now hafrashas challah, you can argue that this kind of challah is not being eaten. But I would say on the other hand, the farker, that's because of kedusha. It has a holiness to it. So even more, you shouldn't be mevaza the oichlim. So I didn't. It's not. It was designated as hafrashas challah. The moment they separated, they made a bracha. Now it's hafrashas challah. You don't know the halachas of hafrashas challah. Hafrashas challah, when you separate the dough, that dough is now considered hafrashas challah, and that has a kedusha on it. It's considered hafrashas challah, and it has a kedusha on it. Yeah, you have to give it to the kohen times of the Beis Hamikdash. Today it's not relevant to everyone's tummy, but yeah, it has the kedusha on it already. It has to be burned. There's a halacha over here. There's a halacha. He brings. There used to be by some weddings, they would have pipes and they would pour wine and it would go all around. I remember when I was by Levi Mizrahi's his father's cousin's wedding, which happens to be Nachi's mother's cousin's wedding also. And at the wedding, so they were actually Gruzinim over there, and it was a very cool thing. They had a huge plate, a tray. They had a whole bunch of glasses, like maybe 10 glasses, and a pyramid of other glasses, and a whole bunch of glasses, and one glass on top, and they put a bottle of wine, and they poured into the top one, and slowly it overflowed to the other ones, till all the glasses got filled up. But it looks very cool, but the pile, it dripped all over the place. It wasn't like perfect, and everything else stayed. It ends up spilling out, but that's the halacha, that for such a thing it's permitted, because it adds a simcha. Huh? Oh, man. It's not a Taimani minhag. It's your father's cousin. She married a Gruzini, and that Gruzini. Schneider is here. Huh? Yeah. Eti and Chaim. You know them? Levi Ashvili. Now he goes by Ben Levi. He calls himself. Then he was Levi Ashvili. They live in Florida. Okay. Are you allowed to listen to a song with a pasuk in the bathroom? So, the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Pei Hei, Alter Rebbe talks about saying brachas and davening in the bathroom. The Alter Rebbe says, Loi la'omrei bilvad, elafilu laharer belibei assur. It's assur not just to say words of Torah, even to think words of Torah. Filu b'divrei Torah, Chayav legis b'yom v'layla, you have to learn Torah by day and by night. But in the bathroom, he says, you should do other cheshbonos, you shouldn't do that. There are those that say that a shower might be different, because a shower is not a beis hakisa, it's a beis hamerchatz. A shower is not as a bizoyon as a bathroom, but in a bathroom where there's a toilet, which today you can argue today's toilets are not considered toilets of the past. In the past, the toilets were a hole in the ground and all the stuff remained over there. Today's toilets get flushed and everything goes away. So you can argue that maybe this beis hakisa is not the same, but I think for most purposes, we consider today a bathroom the bathrooms of the past, and Alter Rebbe says you can't even think divrei Torah. When you hear a song with a pasuk, you're obviously thinking about it, and you have it in your mind, and therefore, b'pashas it would be assur. There are those that say that you're allowed to think Torah in the bathroom, and it's not as bad, but I would say that based on Pshat and Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, it should be forbidden.
What if it's a shower in the bathroom?
If you're in the room where the bathroom is, and we consider the toilet to be a bathroom, it should be forbidden also. If there's a hafsek, then maybe it could be more lenient. Yeah.
So downstairs showers are considered bathroom?
I would say they're not on the same level as the bathroom. They're completely a separate room. And it's all that. I didn't say you're allowed to listen to it in the shower. I'm just saying your shower is a different category.
Okay, and now second thing, what about nigunim?
I didn't ask that question. I was asked in the past. I'm pretty sure nigunim it could be more lenient, but I can't say for sure. Yeah. It's words of Chazal. Words of Chazal or Torah. Chazal. You're supposed to listen to cheshbonos. You should listen to the podcast, Kosher Money. You should listen to things that are not good or not bad. Okay. Question. Are you allowed to learn Chumash before Shachris? What about Gemara? What about Rambam? So regarding learning Torah in the morning before davening, so the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Pei Teh starts off that in the morning, as soon as the morning comes, you're not allowed to do anything. Also, la'adam lis'asik v'tzrachav kaidem tefillah shmina esrei. You can't. With first thing in the morning you wake up, the first thing is davening. And he continues in Siv Zayin, afilu lilmoid assur mishi gias man atfilah. Even to learn, it's forbidden from when the time of davening comes. Imu rogil lispalel bebeis midrashi biyachid ve'einei rogil leilech lebeis hakneses. If you usually daven alone and you don't go to shul, the moment Zman Tefillah it begins in the morning and from Netzach Hamo, you're not allowed to daven and learn because you might get caught up in the learning. But someone that goes to shul, in other words, he has a set time for davening. So if you have a set time, Shmulik, if you have a set time for davening, then you're allowed to learn Torah before davening. If you don't have a set time for davening, then you're not allowed to learn before. Now, regarding the specifics, whether it's Chumash, Gemara, or Rambam, so mitzad halacha, it makes no difference. Mitzad halacha, in the morning, you're allowed to learn before davening because the halacha allows it. And mitzad darkei achsidis, so there are chassidim that in the morning will tell you the reason why we don't daven first thing in the morning and other yeshivas Seder begins at 7:30, and that's what Shachas. It starts off at 7 Shachas first thing in the morning. There are the Gerer Yeshivas, the Gerer Chassidim, by them, the Seder starts at 4:30 in the morning, and they have 2 hours of learning Gemara till 6:30, 7 o'clock, and that's when they start. There's a... what time is lights out? Probably 9 o'clock. No, they go to sleep early. It's not such a big deal if you train yourself to do that. If you go to sleep every night at 9, 10 o'clock, you can wake up earlier. So there is, because they have a set time for learning. But in Chabad, the reason why you push off davening not first thing in the morning is because of learning Chassidus. So therefore, we encourage learning Chassidus because Chassidus helps you in your davening. It's not stam learning. Now, there were Chassidim that would learn Rambam first thing in the morning. I was told that Mendel Futterfas would learn Rambam in the morning because he felt that's the Rebbe's takana should be the first thing in the morning. That was his personal hargish. I assume that there are people who do the same thing for Chumash. it comes to Gemara, there was a shul, Lubavitcher shul, many years ago in America, that they had a shir on Shabbos morning in Gemara. And this was before the Friedrich Rebbe made the takana of Shabbos Mevorchim Tehillim. And when the takana of Shabbos Mevorchim Tehillim came out, the members of the shul, they wrote to the Friedrich Rebbe, we're going to cancel our Gemara shir on Shabbos Mevorchim in order to say Tehillim. And the Friedrich Rebbe, I think the Friedrich Rebbe responded, Mechas v'sholem, don't cancel a shir Gemara. The Tehillim was meant to be if there's nothing else happening. But if you have a shir Gemara, don't cancel your shir Gemara, because continue your Gemara shir before davening, and the daven. 1 second. So from that you see that it's fine. Now the reason why today, according to that, we have a set shir chassidus every Shabbos. So how come Shabbos and Varchim we have Tehillim? So the answer is that today, when we set up a seder in a yeshiva or in a Chabad shul, it's always set up in such a way that every week we say, and we learn chassidus, and the Shabbos and Varchim, the Chatchil, it's set up that we don't learn chassidus, we say Tehillim. This shul, the seder was, every single Shabbos, there was Gemara. And they had to change their seder, so he said not to. But today we set up the Chatchil in such a way, then it's fine. But the bottom line is that if you have a set time, halachically it's permitted. If you don't have a set time, it's forbidden. And even though you have a set time, it's permitted. But a Chassidish Yidin would try to learn davka Chassidus, and some Chassidish Yidin would say, even the Rebbe's Lakonos like Chumash and Rambam, they learn as well. Okay, question. I'm not going to say the name, but there's a person that's sitting here that someone asked, is he a Lubavitcher? And if yes, why, whenever one asks him about Chassidus, he says, it's not my thing? So, the question is, if someone says, it's not my thing when it comes to Chassidus, is he a Lubavitcher? So what does it mean? What does it mean that a Lubavitcher? So the Bacher asking the question is saying, if you're a Lubavitcher, you can't say about Chassidus, it's not my thing. I disagree. And I think that there are people that learn Chassidus and it's their thing, and you can argue maybe they're not Lubavitchers either. What's a Lubavitcher is a huge conversation. You can have this is the words that this person said. It's not my thing. So someone that's against learning Chassidus, then I would say you can't call him a Lubavitcher. But someone that says it's not my thing, the Pashas, what he means to say is, I have a koch in learning, let's say Gemara or Chumash or whatever it may be. This is what I'm good at. Chassidus, I'm not familiar with. You ask me questions on Chassidus, it's not my thing. I have a Rav, I ask him Shilas. When I ask him Shilas in certain Simonim and Shulchan Aruch, he answers me. When I ask him in certain sections, he tells me, it's not my thing. I don't know. I don't know Choshen Mishpat. That's what he tells me. Don't ask me questions on that. So is he not a Rav? He's a Rav, but he doesn't know that thing. You could be a Lubavitcher, learn Chassidus, but you don't feel confident enough and familiar enough to be able to answer questions. Just because you say it's not my thing doesn't mean. And if even someone that doesn't learn Chassidus enough to say he's not a Lubavitcher, he's lacking in his behavior of a Lubavitcher. Unless you want to really get into the nitty gritty and what's a Lubavitcher, someone that does all the darki Chassidus and limud Chassidus, and if that's the case, none of us are Lubavitchers. At least most of us are not Lubavitchers, because real Lubavitchers daven barichas every day, and they do iskafia, and they're learning Gemara, and they're learning Chassidus, and they're doing all the good things with Havas Yisrael, v'chulu, and everyone can look at themselves and say that I'm lacking, and for sure you can look at others and say that they're lacking. Memele, I would say that as a Pashas, a Lubavitcher, it's not how we define it today, so it should be fine. That's why I would say it's not a contradiction. Correct, it can also be. Question, what should I do if my grates or for my toaster are dirty and cannot be cleaned because it's burnt on? How do you tovel them? The answer is that you clean the best of your ability and then you tovel them. If it's a kind of whatever it is, rust or whatever it may be that can't be removed, then you do your best, and afterwards, if it's not going to be removed anyway, it becomes part of the grates and then you can tovel afterwards. The question wasn't about kashrim, it was about tovel. For kashrim is halachas of doing libun chomer. For a grate, you have to do libun. Question, if someone borrows a screwdriver and it gets bent, and he asks someone to bend it back, and then it cracked, who is Chayav? So we have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven has a screwdriver, Shimon borrowed the screwdriver from Reuven, and it bent, and Shimon asked Levi, can you fix it? And Levi bent it, and it ended up cracking. So who is Chayav? So my understanding, first of all, for sure Shimon is Chayav to pay Reuven. Shimon borrowed the screwdriver, there's no question Shimon is Chayav to pay Reuven. Because you borrowed an item, as a shoyel, you're Chayav ba'oinsin, even if you want to say this is an oines, so you're Chayav. Number two, what? 1 second. If it's Meisa Machmas Malacha, the question is, did he use it regularly according to that? But there's a rule that a shomer cannot give something over to another shomer. If I borrow something from you, I have no rights to give it to somebody else. The moment I give it to somebody else, I'm a pesheya and I'm responsible. So if I gave it to someone else and it broke, no matter what happened, I'm chayav to return it. So Shimon is for sure chayav to pay Reuven because he borrowed from him something and he's chayav ba'insin. And in this case, again, it was even if it's made some machmas malacha, but it ended up by the other guy. The question is Levi chayav to pay Shimon? Because Shimon asked Levi, can you fix it? And Levi said yeah, and he tried and he broke it. So now the question would be, is Levi a mumche in fixing screwdrivers? If he's a mumche and these kind of things, then we can say that a mumche tries doing something, we can trust his expertise, and if he messes up, he's not at fault because I'm a mumche, but what should I do? I messed up. The industry has to continue this way. But if Levi's not a mumche, then what are you taking responsibility? How are you playing around with it? This can be broken. If you don't know what you're doing, who gave you the right to try to play around with it? So then you're a pesheya. If that's the case, then Levi has to pay Shimon. And then we can say Shibuda, the Rab Nosson, that Levi has to pay Reuven. But when it comes to Shomer, in B'derech Klal, the Shomer, the Masar, the Shomer, he has to, the Balabais, the owner of the screwdriver, can tell the original Shoyel, you borrowed from me, I don't know of any other stories, you're chayav to me, and you have to deal with a Rav if he's chayav for you. What?
You said that if you borrow something, you can't give it to someone else? Or
correct. You can't give it to somebody else, and therefore, if it gets damaged, you're responsible. You can't give it regardless. But if you give it, then the guy will give it back to you and everything is fine. So you did something wrong, but there's no question of monetary payment. Are you a mumche? I don't know. I think that you're very good with your hands. You know how to fix things and break things and all stuff like that. So question is, it's a question that you have to have someone that knows you and knows your industry.